wondering, and I have to stick my finger in her mouth. And
in 300 yards, at the roundabout, continue straight to stay on Horn Lane, A4000.
Church and what was going on, and they were talking about what was going right, and they never saw what was going wrong. They saw the wine, and I saw the crushing. I really saw the crushing. You see, my mother was not just my mother, she was my best friend. She was my secret keeper, my confidant. I knew everything about her, and she knew everything about me. And losing her was like losing me in pieces, because we were almost the same person. Even through Alzheimer's, we could still continue to communicate. And when she lost her ability to speak English and started speaking gibberish, when I would walk into the room, she'd look at me and say, "Hi, baby."
In 200 yards, turn right onto Western Avenue, A40.
And I held her until her body got cold. And it was painful. And it was tough. And I still had to teach about
turn right onto Western Avenue, A40.
And I still had to preach on Sunday morning, and I still had to conduct business, and I still had to negotiate the affairs of the church. And I was writing a book by her bedside while she was in the hospital.
Continue on A40 for 2 miles.
While she was dying, in the room with her, right by her side. You can't let go of one thing for the other. You have to do both simultaneously. Life doesn't stop for you to hurt. It doesn't stop turning because you lost a loved one. It doesn't stop because you don't feel good. It won't give you a leave of absence so that you can get away from everything and shut it all down. It's still happening. The bills are still coming. The problems are still coming. I'm talking about crushing people. I'm talking about pain. I'm talking about suffering. I'm talking about where the rubber meets the road. I'm not talking about church. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about life. Jesus didn't say, "I come that you might have church." He said, "I come that you might have life." And sometimes we're great at having church, but we're having a terrible time having life. We know how to clap, we know how to sing, we know how to shout, but do we know how to live? And God won't just be a church experience. He's gonna get in your life experience to validate your church experience. So I asked myself, what does this mean? How would I get through this? Can I get through this? I have never had to get through this before. I have never lived a day that she wasn't in it. Not one. I have never been abandoned like that in my life. And even though I was 40, for the first time in my life, I was an orphan. A preaching orphan. A teaching orphan, a traveling book writing orphan. And though he slay me, yet shall I trust him. You see, in order to develop real quality, it takes time, and it takes pain, and it takes endurance, and it takes grief, and it takes trouble, and it takes turmoil, and it takes destruction and demolition. Demolition is a messy thing. If you get ready to remodel your house, expect to have some mess. And when God gets ready to recycle you, he does it through the things you suffer and the things you do. In the Gospel of St. John, Jesus identifies who he is. And he says, "I am the vine, and ye are the branches. And every branch in me that bear fruit, I purge it that it might bring forth more fruit." That's the sentence that gets me. Because it would seem like to me that if the branch was doing good, you would leave it alone. But he says, every branch in me that beareth fruit, I cut it back. I cut it back not because I'm a serial killer, not because I'm out to destroy the bush, not because I hate grapes, not because I don't want it to win, but I cut it back so that it might bring forth more fruit. So we don't go through these crushings because we are not his, and we don't go through these crushings because he doesn't love us, and we don't go through these crushings because we're not fruitful. He cuts us because we are fruitful. Because as fruitful as we are, he knows the potential of what is yet down inside of us, and he knows how to get you to that potential, and he stops you from being safe. And it stops you from being satisfied. You have to give up safety if you're going to walk with God. You have to trust him that he is the farmer. That
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to continue on Westway, A40.
The branches, he says, my father is the husbandman, and the husbandman is the farmer. He's the vintner. He's the one that controls the process. He knows exactly where to cut to make you more fruitful.
Keep right to continue on Westway.
I tried to do like my mother who pruned the rose bushes. I decided I would help her out and go prune the rose bushes. And when she came home from work, I had almost...
In 1.5 miles, take the exit towards West End Paddington, Ring Road South.
You can tell, can't you imagine? Just shrink me down to about 8 years old. You got trouble on your hand. I was a bad little boy. I had torn the bush apart. And she was furious with me. And I said, why are you furious with me when I'm only doing what you did? She said, no, you're not doing what I did because I know where to cut. See, the vintner knows where to cut. It's not the cut alone. You can't just cut it anywhere. He knows where to cut, and he knows when to cut, and he knows how to cut to bring you to the place that you can be more fruitful, because ultimately he wants you to have enough fruit that we can become wine, that we can enter into that state of being that lasts for years and years and hundreds of years as wine. But if I remain, a grape I will go bad. So it is the only fruit that is raised to die. It is raised to be crushed. It is meant to be stepped on. It is meant to be bruised. If grapes could scream, they would cry out from the pain of becoming wine. But if they can endure the pain of the crushing and trust the vintner, who is God our Father, to take me through this process, my latter days will be greater than my former days. And finally, I'll be more valuable, and I'll be worth more, and I may get shipped abroad, and I may be served to kings and princes and set before great men only because I've been crushed. I may be served at the finest tables. I may be used in the greatest restaurants only because I endured the crushing. Jesus connects us to the Father by helping us to understand what his role is in our life so that we won't misunderstand the knife. So that we will understand that the knife is in the right hand. That sometimes when God approaches you, he approaches you and he looks like a slayer because he's coming with something that hurts. And you have to trust his character when you don't understand his methods. You have to understand his acts by believing in his ways. Because the husbandman is our Father. He cuts us in all the right places. And we can do nothing without him. We can be nothing without him. We cannot reach the height and the hope of the...
In 300 yards, take the exit towards West End Paddington, Ring Road South.
How fast the car will go. He has built it and designed it to accomplish more than the foot that's got its pressure on the pedal. He has designed...
Take the exit towards West End Paddington.
That you may be willing to drive. And so if you want to know how fast it can go, you have to talk to the manufacturer.
In a quarter of a mile, continue onto Westbourne Bridge.
More things than you may even be capable of doing. And God pushes us out of our comfort zone by crushing us. Jesus became human so that he could understand what it was like to be human. He experienced our trials, our temptations, our heartaches, our pain, so that he would be an example for us. He is the fruition of God's word. He proves himself in us. He walks it out right in front of us to show us that it can be done. He allows himself to be beaten right in front of us, and we got to see him be beaten, and we got to see him be ridiculed and laughed at, and be popular and then unpopular, and loved and then hated, so that we would understand that all of this is part of...
Continue onto Westbourne Bridge, then turn right onto Orchard Terrace.
My wife is a neat freak. She wants everything in place. I think the house is clean even when she says it's not. And she'll be complaining about stuff that I think is no big deal, because she likes everything nice and neat. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a messy person. Well, maybe a little bit. But I like it nice even though I'm messy. I like it nice and neat. I like life nice and neat and packaged and beautiful and smelling good, and that's not how it happens. Any winemaker will tell you that making wine is a dirty business.
Take the next right onto Orchard Terrace.
It's a business that leaves stains in your clothes and scratches in your skin. That making wine happens in dirty places, not nice, neat, comfortable, lazy boy chair, laid back remote control places. That's not how you become wine. We have a God who works in dirty places. From the very first time we meet him in the book of Genesis, we see him stooping down, playing in the dirt. This is the first indication that God is not afraid to work in dirty places. Over and over again, we get the metaphor of him being a farmer of seed time and harvest, of sowing and reaping, to let you know that God works in the dirt. And when you pray to stay out of the dirt, you're praying to stay away from God, because he stoops down.
Merge onto Gloucester Terrace, then slide left onto Porchester Square.
And he shapes you in the dirt, and he forms you in the dirt, and he matures you in the dirt, and he stabilizes you in the dirt, like any wine dresser would. If a wine dresser...
Take the next left onto Porchester Square, then turn right to stay on Porchester Square.
You won't have the wine, because the wine means that you got to step on it, and you got to crush it.
Turn right to stay on Porchester Square, then turn right onto Porchester Road.
Until both the winemaker and the grape have experienced the same stain. And he was wounded for our transgressions, and he was bruised.
Turn right onto Porchester Road, B411.
And with his stripes, we are healed. Jesus became human so that he could be stained with the stain that we experience, so that when we cry out to him...
In 300 yards...